Welcome back to the latest episode of Conference Chatter TV, where after 6 weeks, it's finally been done. I had the undefeated week in picking Big 12 games that I was looking for. I went 6-0 in picking Big 12 games in week 6 of the college football season. It's about time. I had missed one game each week up until this point, and I was really waiting for this undefeated week to take place, and I'm happy to get that out of the way and happy to improve my record on the season to 48-5, picking Big 12 games at a 90.6% clip. Let's keep this up all season. If I could get that and keep that to about 90% all season, I will be more than satisfied. So let's go over some of those games that took place last week in the Big 12. Let's start with number 7, Nebraska, 48, Kansas State, 13, Manhattan. The Huskers having no problem running all over the Wildcats in Manhattan. And it was kind of the same old story for Nebraska. Taylor Martinez, 242 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. That broke the team Nebraska record for rushing yards by a quarterback in a single game, which is pretty darn impressive when you consider the pedigree of Nebraska football and the amount of really, really good running quarterbacks that the Huskers have had. One of the keys for Nebraska in winning this game certainly was Martinez, but on defense it was holding Daniel Thomas and making Kansas State one-dimensional. Thomas, 22 carries, 63 yards, didn't really do much, and when Kansas State is forced to play from behind, their weak passing attack prohibits them from, effectively playing from behind. You dig K-State in a hole, and they have a tough time digging out of it, turning to the passing game. So that's what Nebraska did, and one of the keys that I talked about before the game was controlling the clock and taking the crowd out of it and counting on that ground game, and that's exactly what Nebraska did. Martinez was unbelievable, and it's really amazing that Nebraska had a quarterback controversy in the spring and in the summer. Maybe Bo Pelini saw something, and maybe he kind of was leaning toward Martinez the whole time, but we didn't know about this until shortly before Nebraska's first game, and Cody Green and Zach Lee will not be seeing the field, that's for sure. And for Green, he's a guy that I think he's a sophomore this year, and he was supposed to have a major impact with this program. And with Martinez being a redshirt freshman, he's probably not going to get a whole lot of opportunities to do that, at least at the quarterback position, because Martinez is looking like a Heisman Trophy candidate at this point, probably the only one right now out of the Big 12, but Nebraska looking strong. The next one I had was Oklahoma State 54, Louisiana Lafayette 28. Cowboys looked a little sloppy at the beginning, actually trailed 21-17 at half, but then the second half took place and the Cowboys just ran away with it. They scored 3 times in the first 9 minutes of the second half and really put this one out of reach. A game that Oklahoma State should have won, and they did. Justin Blackmon, the wide receiver for Oklahoma State, continues to impress. 13 receptions, 190 yards, and 2 scores. He's your national leader in receiving yardage per game. Keep an eye on that guy. And I don't want to say he's come out of nowhere, but I didn't even know he was going to be Oklahoma State's primary receiver this season with the year that Hubert Anium had last year for Oklahoma State. But Blackmon has emerged as one of the best, probably the best wide receiver in the Big 12, and one of the best in the country, statistically the best in the country. We'll see if that holds up in Big 12 play, but the guy was sensational again. Moving right along, Texas Tech 45, Baylor 38. This was a tough game to predict in the Cotton Bowl. I went with Texas Tech because I thought this really salvaged their season. They were 0-2 in conference play and really needed this one. And Taylor Potts, Texas Tech quarterback, really stepped up. 462 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, and that was huge for Texas Tech, but the Red Raiders still have a lot to correct, particularly on defense, giving up that many points to Baylor, and on special teams. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is one of the most bizarre plays that I've ever witnessed. Texas Tech tried an onside kick in just a very bizarre sequence with a game tied at 7. Well, the ball didn't go the required 10 yards for Texas Tech to pick it up, and 3 Red Raiders were seen kind of crowding around the ball, almost looking like they were downing a punt. Well, if the ball doesn't go 10 yards, it's still live on a kickoff. Baylor can still pick it up and run with it, And that's exactly what Terrence Ganaway did, picking it up and returning it 38 yards for a touchdown. If you haven't seen this, check out my conference chatter blog on kusports.com. It's up there right now. I have it on the YouTube video. I have footage of it there that I found on YouTube. It's a wild sequence, but Ganaway, a heads-up play. Baylor, they didn't have enough because their defense just, they couldn't stop Texas Tech. But the Red Raiders, a good win. They still have a long, long ways to go. By no means did they look dominating in this game, but the offense did enough to win this game, and that's the reason they won. So still a lot of areas to work on for the Red Raiders. Next, we had Missouri, number 24 in the country. They beat Colorado 26-0. The Missouri defense, give them credit, pitching a shutout, and they're now number 3 in the country in scoring defense. I think it's time to call Missouri's defense legitimate after this showing. I mean, anytime you can shut out a team in Big 12 play, it is pretty impressive. I don't care who you're playing. And now Missouri, the Tigers are only allowing 11.20 points per game. Like I said, 3 in the country. That's very, very impressive. Missouri right where they want to be. They're 5-0 and 1-0 in the conference, tied with Nebraska for first place in the Big 12 North. It's going to be really interesting coming up. Missouri with a very tough schedule. Next week they're at Texas A&M. Then they play host to Oklahoma. Then they're at Nebraska. If they could survive that stretch, they might be able to do some damage in the North. Next game was number 11 Arkansas 24, Texas A&M 17. I didn't pick Texas A&M before this game, and they showed why. 4 turnovers again for the Aggies. That's the 4th straight game that's happened, that they've had at least 4 turnovers, and they're not going to win many games when they do that. I'll be the first to admit that I thought A&M was going to be pretty solid this year, and they still have the opportunity to do that, but not when you commit that many turnovers. They really, really have to get that fixed. Final game that I picked correct was number 10 Utah 68, Iowa State 27. Not much to say for this, but the Utes have been rolling teams this year. I mean, they've even had larger deficits than they've beaten teams even bigger than Iowa State. I know it wasn't, in the BCS conferences, but Utah is looking pretty solid, and I thought this would be a lot closer. This game was in Ames. Iowa State had the home field advantage. It did not matter. I thought it'd be a lot closer, but I did have Utah prevailing in that game. So 6-0 on the season, or excuse me, on the week. I wish it was on the season. I was undefeated, but 6-0 on the week. Not too bad. I'll be here next week to dissect the games in Week 7 in the Big 12. So thanks, guys, for checking out the latest edition of Conference Chatter TV. I'm Eric Sorrentino. I'm out. I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks.